We are live and direct this afternoon with singer and songwriter and author and band leader Craig Finn, who has a new album out now and a newly announced show here in Pittsburgh, but not until October. So we're going to talk all about the new release, Always Been. We're here with a room full of WYAP members. And Craig, would love it if you started with the song.
Yeah, I'm going to start with a song called Bethany. In the later afternoon, it sort of softens on the avenue, wasting the remainder of the day. Drinking off what's left of the glasses on the table, and the couples get their checks and walk away. And I'll be here tomorrow and then every day that follows, till I see you later on this week. Will you come and pick me up when I get up off the bus? Will you help me bring my stuff out to the beach? When we met, I was the reverend. You were in the congregation. Didn't happen right away, but pretty soon. And I never had a calling, I just had a strong desire to be the one that stood up in the room. So when I was a child, I used to fixate on the chaplain, the way he brought the widows all to tears. That looked like a decent way to make a little living here. Gave myself to God for a few years. Built a chapel off the exit on the highway outside Harrisburg. There was all that new development back then. Parishioners would come to me with cakes and little pastries, ask me for my blessing once again. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I was faking all the faithfulness, and every single sermon was a fraud. Drifted through the rituals, prideful, high, and pitiful, pissing off a petty, vengeful God. Pissing off a petty, vengeful God. My parents are both ancient now. I'm staying at their summer house, clear out on the weekends when they come. To my sisters with their daughter on the fringe of Philadelphia, with their skinny cigarettes and snapping gum. But I'm grateful for the place to stay. I'm caddying on Saturdays. The money's not as good as it was when we were teenagers. Walk back from the golf course, cut through a couple backyards, try to keep my eyes pointed heavenward. In another prior life, the Reverend and his wife sitting in the kitchen making plans, unaware of all the mess, the pressure in the flesh is capable of making it a man. And I never really fell, 'cause I was never quite convinced. But I must admit I miss all the simplicity of a woman and a man. Though I also understand the reasons you no longer want to be with me. I can see why you no longer want to be with me. Devil came in hot, someone called the cops. I explained to them how much it is you mean to me. The cuffs, they made a click as they wrapped around my wrists. Everybody's got some version of security. Somewhere there's a life where the Reverend has his wife and Jesus has his ministry in Galilee. But this sunset looks like blood from the windows of this bus. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany.
Well, we are live and direct this afternoon with Craig Finn, who has a new album out now. It's called Always Been, plus a newly announced show here in Pittsburgh in October. And we just heard the song Bethany, which opens up the new record. And Craig, like they just keep coming, huh? You must have 100 notebooks, don't you?
I these days it's I've gone digital. It's my notes app that is overflowing, but I do keep all my old notebooks. There was a transition, and I feel like the notebooks are more romantic, but the digital is more convenient.
Yeah, there's no Control F in a notebook, right?
Right.
Well, this new album, Always Been, it's out now, and it's a very LA sounding record to the point where you even channel Randy Newman from the Little Criminals album on the cover. So what is an LA record to you, and why is this one?
So I've always wanted to make an LA record in the sense that I've always wanted to spend time in Los Angeles making a record. This luckily came to fruition because Adam Granduciel from the band The War on Drugs has a studio out in Burbank, and I talked to him about making the record. And it's funny, I think a lot about, once I got out there, I was like, regardless of being in Los Angeles, studios are kind of often a windowless affair. So the LA part of the record kind of happens when you drive to and from there. So I guess it's the traffic. But I listened to Jackson Browne a lot when I was driving to the studio, and those kind of records, that kind of music, Warren Zevon, Jackson Browne, Randy Newman, great songwriters with a sense of humor, I think, are all hallmarks of that, and that's music that Adam and I talked about going in. So in that sense, it's an LA record.
Well, if you don't know the Adam that Craig is talking about, that's Adam Granduciel from The War on Drugs, and it's not immediately apparent, but by the time the first guitar solo hits on the first song on the album, I mean, if you've ever listened to The War on Drugs at all, you just know, okay, this is that. And I loved your work with Josh Kaufman. I think he's brilliant, but sometimes you just got to switch it up. So what made this unique compared to your other projects?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Kaufman and I had made, between my solo work and the Hold Steady, 7 albums in a row. And I thought, well, it's time to change. And funny enough, once I went out, I thought Adam and I started talking. And Adam, in The War on Drugs, I know his way, or at least what he's told me about the way he works, is he kind of goes on a journey of sound. He has puts all these tracks down, hundreds of tracks, and he's taking things away and adding to them and changing it. And eventually he gets to this place where he kind of carves out a song from this sonic, all of this, and writes lyrics and makes it a song. I'm the exact opposite. I have 3 pages of words and 1 chord. So I was like, maybe if we meet in the middle, something cool would happen. One of the better decisions I've ever made. And the funny thing is once we got into it, and I was thinking I actually remember Josh Kaufman saying, you know what you should do, because we're all friends. He said, you should make a record with Adam someday. And so I felt like I had his blessing.
Yeah, for sure. It is a really wonderful listen. If you haven't heard Always Been yet, I really encourage you to dive into this album. I've listened to it quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I guess for those who haven't heard it, what is the elevator pitch? Because it revolves around this really fascinating group of characters, centered for the most part around one particular guy.
Yeah, actually, the song I just played, Bethany, is the first song I wrote for the album. I've never had quite an entry into an album before, because I wrote that song first. It introduced this character. I ended up showing that song first to Adam. We recorded it first, and then when we went to sequence the record, it became obvious it should be the first song. And it introduces this guy, and he is someone who became a priest without having faith, without believing in God. And related to that or not, it all came crashing down. After he had a lot of success and built a very robust life with a wife and a family, it sort of all caught up to him. And that's where the record starts, with him trying to figure out what happened and where it all went wrong. And I wrote that one song, and it felt so rich that I just kind of kept coming at it from different angles.
Do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like that character? We obviously love you. You're very respected as a singer and a songwriter and a band leader, but do you ever think man, I'm not really a rock star?
Oh, I mean, everyone has imposter. I think everyone has imposter syndrome. There is that thing. You're you see your name, even when the band starts doing well and you see yourself, maybe halfway up the bill on festival, and you're like, well, but what about those people under me? I think that I should be at the bottom, like you definitely never quite experience your own music on par with your heroes in some way, no matter how you try, but you kind of have to just let go of that. But yeah, at the same time, I think I try to take one thing I try to take is like when I look around and see who my friends have become, and I'm like, oh, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, you're doing all right. Well, I'm really glad that we're all here today, although I kind of wish we were at the bar because I know the conversation can get much more real there. And you're very obviously good at inventing scenarios, but like how much of these characters comes from something you've seen or something you've heard? I mean, even the most mundane moments in your songs can end up hitting super hard, and it just blows me away every time. Like I can smell the person smoking the generic Super Slims. Like I know that person.
Yeah, I always like to quote John Gregory Dunn in this one, who says the first character in every novel is the author. And I do a podcast called That's How I Remember It. We talk a lot about memory and creativity. And one of the things I've found is talking about details. And so if I write a song about, falling off a building, I've never done that before. But if I put that building on a corner that I walk by, several times a day, I can tell that story more realistically. And someone on the podcast talked about getting those details right is what makes a fictitious story feel honest. And he was a television writer, friend of mine, Edward Kissis, and he said it's like the difference between at Easter biting into one of those hollow chocolate bunnies or a solid one. And that sticks with me, that when you get the details right, it becomes the solid bunny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that hurts. You take that bite and it's like,
well, but it's more
we
satisfying.
waited 40 days for this.
Yeah.
Well, when I've been listening to the Hold Steady for 20-something years now. I love that band, and when I listen to them, I laugh a lot. And there are definitely a few moments on this new album that do make me laugh out loud. Like I think of the line, I put a rock in my shoe just to remind me of you. But more often than not, the reaction has been more of like a oof, like that hurt. I mean, these stories are dark and as real as anything I've ever heard. So is this just a consequence of growing up? Like we got to get there now.
Yeah, I mean, I think these stories that, on the solo records are always a little smaller and more mundane, but this one is particularly, obviously the guy who's lost his family and impersonated being a priest is not a happy story. That said, my favorite songwriters are always in some way funny. Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Nick Cave, Mick Jagger, Chuck Berry. And so I challenged myself on this record to come up with at least one line on every song that made me laugh. And I can't say everyone's going to laugh, but made me laugh. So I kind of find a dark humor in all of it. And I think dark humor is sometimes what I'm aiming for with these songs.
It's working well. We're live and direct this afternoon with Craig Finn, whose new album Always Been is out now. Plus, he recently announced a Pittsburgh show here in October, and we're going to keep talking about the new album because it really is incredible. But how about a couple songs?
Yeah, so I'm going to start out with People of Substance, which is the second song on the record. It's also about that same guy. And it's about how he's kind of calling back to his old wife and saying he's doing a lot better. And it's up to the listener whether we believe him. Dana, I don't get depressed anymore. Is it possibly December at the Delaware shore? Maybe missing numbers on the motel doors. Toy section at this drugstore. Otherwise, I'm pretty much cured. I've been getting out of bed before noon now. Gonna find a new place pretty soon now. The whole thing's moving uptown. And I'm sorry about the way that I scared you. I'm sorry that I wasn't in touch since. Spent way too much time on people without any substance. And I decided that I'm gonna push forward. I'm committed to making the change. But you gotta remember I never go out in the rain. And it's been raining all day and my jacket got nicked from the coat check. The curtains can't keep out the gray. These umbrellas that you get at the drugstore always blow the wrong way. Dana, I don't drink nearly as much, 1 or 2 nights of the week at the most. I know I used to be such a monster, the city's still lousy with ghosts. So I'm sorry about that fight in the taxi. You know, I probably just wasn't my night. If you just agree to come see me, I could try to make it alright. I decided that I'm gonna back off now. I heard you turn that old boy into a husband. Now you're out in the county hanging out with some people of substance. Dana, I'm done with the breakdowns, but the winter's pretty weird here at the shore. You never really told me what it was you cut me off for, and I'm still not sure. So I decided that I'd call and just check in, 'cause if I was good enough for you back then, you shouldn't be ashamed to bring me around to your new friends. I've been asking around for some sort of system to trust in. Maybe you could put me in touch with some people of substance. Spend way too much time on people without any substance. I spend way too much time on people without any substance. Thank you. So, aforementioned former priest, is we find him at the beginning of the record living in his parents' summer house in the off season when they aren't using it in Delaware Shore, which is a detail I got because I did some summers there through a family member at a house down in Fenwick Island on the Delaware Shore, which doesn't scan on the page as beautifully as Bethany, so I moved it up the beach a little bit. But in that first song, Bethany talks about how when his parents come down to use the summer house, he has to leave, and he goes to his sister's house on the fringe of Philadelphia, where she lives with her daughter. And as I thought about this guy, I thought maybe we should have a song that kind of checks in from that house, and this is kind of a scene report from over there. My sister has a daughter, doesn't look much like her, looks more like the father she won't see. She's mostly on the phone these days, she's got a couple friends her age, some secrets that she died to try to keep. When I'm staying in their guest room, I can hear her in the next room, the whispers and the silence and the sighs. She doesn't eat much breakfast, a single slice of toast at most, watches from the corners of her eyes. And there's crumbs around the corners of her mouth, and you can hear the highway from their house. Traffic sounds like water in a river rushing south. We'll never win this war, but maybe we can wait it out. We'll never win this war, but maybe we can wait it out. Mother is my sister, she's a fighter, but she's tired now. Third shift's such a bitch to decent sleep. Sunday she puts perfume on and waltzes with the vacuum on, sucks up the destruction of the week. In the kitchen there's a radio, she sings along the one she knows, remembers back when some of these were new, when the girls all chose a guy from the dances at the Y. Felt like that was what you're supposed to do. Now all those choices seem a little grim, violent, wild, or disengaged and dim. The highway goes forever, but your funds will fence you in, paying bills and stubbing out generic super slims. The years they put the yellow in her hair and teeth and skin. Her husband was a contractor, a hunter and a fly fisher. He never raised a hand, he just withdrew. So far inside his head that you would barely even notice him. A ghost that's usually in the other room. Eventually they started sleeping separately. Eventually it didn't even hurt. Last winter he moved out to his brother's house. Eventually he stopped going to work. And now she hasn't seen a check in 7 months. And they're living off of credit cards and crumbs. She's pretty sure her daughter has been meeting up with boys. We'll never win this war, but maybe we won't get destroyed. She's wishing that that highway wouldn't make that stupid noise. She doesn't really trust her daughter's friends. She's happy that I'm helping out with the runs. So we stay up late and talk about the way it was before. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war.
Well, that is Crumbs, a song from Always Been, the new record from Craig Finn, who we are live and direct with this afternoon. So we all remember the opening line on Boys and Girls in America that references Kerouac, and I imagine that you're a pretty voracious reader, so what other authors inspire you? Because we were talking about this before you came in, and we had some guesses, like maybe Elmore Leonard or Raymond Carver, maybe David Foster Wallace.
All of the above. Carver's a big one because I think songs are most like short stories. And I think in a great short story, Carver or Cheever or whatever, is this sort of balance between the details that are in there and the details that are out, you know? And like the great short story writers kind of play with that tension. I always think of when you're writing a song, there is some sort of like element of like Jenga to it. You know, you're like either putting a thing in or pulling it away, and you don't, with too much detail, it collapses, too much information, but with not enough, it sort of falls apart also. So I think that the short story writers are the ones that I'm obsessed with in the way that they do that.
Well, I think we're going to become obsessed with your short stories as well. What a great segue. You're good at this. But there is a companion piece to the new album. It's called Lousy with Ghosts, and it is this collection of short stories that takes you a little bit deeper into the lives of these people. And, you know, there's the line in the song about, like, getting confused about all the orange juice, but then, like, you take us in and, like, the man is having a panic attack at the grocery store, and it's just so relatable. And, like, what's the move now? Are you going to keep doing that? Do you have ambitions to go deeper?
Yeah, I mean, Lousy with Ghosts, the book was really fun. It was it's a companion piece, and I wanted to keep it light because I have tried to write longer things before, and it sort of collapsed under my own expectations. And so, like with Lousy with Ghosts, I kind of wanted to I did it quickly, but it was each song. There's 11 songs in the record, so I wrote 11 stories, and they all kind of relate, and each is from the point of view of a character on the album, but not necessarily a main character. So it might be someone on the fringes. And so it allows people who like the record to go deeper into this world and kind of rounds it out. And it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. I even did a reading at a bookstore the other night, and fulfilling my dream to one day go on tour without any equipment. You know, so that's my big thing with. But I am only half joking when I say that the problem with writing a novel or something is that, well, two reasons. Usually if I think of a story, it becomes a song. And number two, I'm pretty social. So like getting together with bandmates and playing songs tends to be more realistic than me sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do set yourself up nicely on this album for that dream of yours. I mean, there's the song Fletcher's, which if you haven't heard it yet, I think you must. It's basically spoken word, and like the band is vamping under you. It's the only song on the album though that's like that. So why?
Well, I thought I've done a couple of those on other albums and I always felt like one is sort of the magic number for those. Fletcher's is a story. A lot of the record deals with the same character, but there are sort of these bottle episodes where, like there are these songs that kind of, you might say, don't relate, but to me, they live in the same world. When I first was explaining this to my manager, I said, it's like got 8 songs that tell this one story, and then there are these other like bottle episodes. So in that sense, maybe it's like a Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon. And he said, that doesn't sound very hip. Maybe you should say Pulp Fiction. So I've been saying either or. But Fletcher's in the same. To me, it really relates, though. It's a story about a guy who thinks he's from my hometown of Minneapolis, and he's a young man who thinks if he can just move to Seattle, everything's going to be okay. And I'm 53 years old. I can tell with some wisdom that your problems tend to come with you, and that's kind of one of the themes of the whole album. You can put on a priest's uniform, you can pretend to be a husband, you can do all these things, but it's not the uniform. Whatever's the saying. Wherever you go, there you are. It's basically that.
Well, I know setting is very important to your work, and I mean, you've taken us so many places through the years, and I love the song that closes the record down, which I believe you're going to play at the end of this. It's called Shamrock, and I know this is not the right take from this song, but what really stuck with me is the line, Sabrina claims the South Side, but really she's from Richfield. And like, we all know a person like that. And like, I swear here in Pittsburgh, it's like a point of contention. Like, people say I'm from Pittsburgh. Like, no, you're from Cranberry.
Right.
Which, yeah, it is Pittsburgh in a way, but I don't know. I know it's the wrong take from that song, but I'm just curious, is that the way it is in other cities you've lived in? I mean, you're from Minneapolis, you live in New York. Like, you can spot a faker, right?
You just reminded me of an amazing story, which is that when the Hold Steady started playing, I don't know, Separation Sunday or Boys and Girls, and started touring, and I wasn't here, I was somewhere else, but I ran into some kid who was a fan, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, wow, check it out. We were doing the same things in Pittsburgh that you were doing in Minneapolis." And I was like, driving around and drinking beer, I think, is universal.
Yeah.
But there is that sense. Yeah, I mean, I think like again, this is playing with details to explain something universal. And Shamrock is very much set in my hometown of Minneapolis. And so like maybe there might be a line or two that get an extra snicker if I'm playing it there. But at the same time, I think like if you're doing your job right as a songwriter, it's getting through universally.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit before, but like as the characters age with you and with us, like it's getting less fun, and it's getting but it's getting more meaningful to listen to these songs. Like with the Hold Steady, I like hearing about those characters because I knew that I wouldn't end up like them. I read the cautionary tales. Like I've seen people fall. My interest in killer parties is more like dabbling. Yeah. But now we're singing about credit card debt and divorce and just like wondering what the hell has happened to my life. So
I think that one of the things that I've always said is that with the Hold Steady, and certainly especially when I started writing songs with the Hold Steady, I was very interested in people making terrible decisions and following them to their logical and terrible conclusion. Where with the solo work and really any of my songs after a certain point, I become much more interested in people who are trying to do the right thing and still coming up short, because I see those people in my real life, and we see these people, as you drive around and go on tour, and you see, and their friends and family often. So that's become more of the focus. I do think there's that, I do hope that there's hope in all these songs in some way, if even a sliver, or maybe that I say that, like, if we all get together and listen to sad songs together, maybe there's just a sort of an acknowledgement that we all suffer or struggle at times, and then that in itself is a beautiful thing. But I have great love for these characters and great compassion, and I don't want to be just like dragging them through the mud all the time, because I think these are my ways of saying to the people some people around me and some people I've imagined, but know people like that they matter and that they, that their stories matter.
Well, again, the album is Always Been. It is such a good listen. If you really want to get lost in something, I highly recommend this record. Craig Finn will be back in Pittsburgh with a full band in October.
With a full band in October.
All right. That is exciting stuff. Well, it was a treat to have you here alone today. Would you leave us with one more song?
Yeah. So this is, as you mentioned, it's called Shamrock. It takes place in my hometown in Minneapolis, Minnesota. About two people I knew, Shamrock and Sabrina. And I wanted to just say that Shamrock is a nickname. His name's Sean, but he always wore one of those green satin Boston Celtics jackets. You know what I'm talking about? And I don't know if they called him Shamrock because he wore the jacket or he wore the jacket because they call him Shamrock as a chicken or the egg kind of thing. I do know with all absolute certainty he'd never been to Ireland. They didn't call him Shamrock because of that. I'm pretty sure he hadn't been to Boston either. Shamrock was a stay in South Minneapolis kind of guy. But him and Sabrina fell in love, and this is their story. She met him after summer school. The Hiawatha the bus stop in a knockoff Celtics jacket. He said his crew, they call him Shamrock. His mother died when he was 5, and his dad's some sort of drug cop. But the apple sometimes rolls way down the hill. Sabrina claimed the South Side, but really she's from Richfield. These invisible divisions never seem like such a big deal. She's been working at a wine bar, making jokes about the mouthfeel. She sometimes takes 20s from the till. Unprovoked and unadorned, white t-shirts and cut-off shorts. Summer takes a shapeless form after dark and powder horn. If you pull your funds together, then you're barely ever broke. Walking up to SA to get smokes. In the spring they found some shambles. In the South suburban sprawl, Sabrina's taking classes. Shamrock's hanging drywall. But his fingernails keep falling off and he comes home mean and sore. And every day he hates it more and more. So the years go by and life goes on. Nothing really happens. School became a drag, so she went back to be a waitress. And there isn't much to sit on when the old crew comes and visits. So they all get high and pass out on the floor. And Shamrock just stops working. Said it's such a meager pittance. And once they take the taxes out, it's barely even worth it. And the TV's set on static. There's drums off in the distance. Their daughter's sleeping in a dresser drawer. Unprescribed and unfulfilled application special skills. She admits she sometimes still takes 20s from the till. And Shamrock's sick of trying to smile when he's holding in the smoke. Got talking to this guy he sorta knows. A call came in this evening from the county credit union. 2 guys with masks and pistols crashed in as they were closing. By the time the cruisers came around, they had grabbed the cash and scattered. But the cameras always capture all the action. So a trooper pulled him over on a vehicle description at a Hampton and in Hudson, about a mile into Wisconsin. And when the footage ran on News at 9, she could tell that it was Shamrock. And that ragged satin jacket, this is Boston. Unrehearsed and unprepared to be the only one who cares for a daughter who keeps asking about her father. They pulled their funds together, but somehow she still broke, walking up to Speedway to get smokes. Walking up to Speedway to get smokes.
It never goes this long. It never does. That's Craig Finn here at WYEP. I don't know how you do it up there without busting into tears like the rest of us, but we appreciate you coming in today and love the new album. So see you back here come October.
Yeah, see you in October. Thanks for coming out to everyone.